So a group of dude bros had just finished up their latest podcast episode. It's going to be fire. It's going to be lit. Everybody's going to want to download it. They were super excited, and as they were wrapping it up, it's going to drop tomorrow, by the way. They head out of their studio, and it's a beautiful, sunny Jerusalem day, and as they're walking down the street, there he is, the main dude. That guy who keeps talking about resurrection. Now, these particular dudes, they don't really get into the resurrection thing all that much, but they got their mics handy. They see him coming. He's got the beautiful hair, the beautiful teeth, and the Birkenstocks. He's easily recognizable, even has that little halo thing around his head. So they go walking up to him, and they ask him a question. So you say you know about the resurrection. What do you think of this? Timmy here is married to Samantha. But Timmy is not able to have kids, and he dies. So Timmy's brother, Jake, has to marry Samantha. But Jake is clumsy and falls into a well, and he dies. Then there's another brother who comes along, but he's clumsy too, and he trips on a rock, and he dies. By the way, Timmy comes from a big farm family. There's a bunch of brothers. Each one of them marries Samantha. And then at the end of the day, all of them are dead, and Samantha dies too. So here's the question. Here's the real question, Jesus. In the resurrection, who's Samantha married to? Now, there's no archaeological evidence that we know of. We haven't found it yet, but we could imagine that at that moment, Jesus face palms, or maybe rolls his eyes and sighs, and says, well, you got the resurrection wrong. And oh, by the way, stop treating women like objects. And then Jesus starts talking about marriage. Marriage is a strange concept, maybe, to be talking about when he's trying to help us understand such a broad understanding like resurrection. But because they brought it up, that's where he begins. And he starts talking about marriage, and he starts helping us begin to envision what God's kingdom is about, what resurrection, life after death. These are language that you and I use. We adopted from the Bible. We adopted in our faith. We sing it. But we also struggle with what resurrection means because we're limited to this world. This is all we know. That's all that those dudes knew was the laws and the way of the world in their time. So in their time, well, not that far back in our own American history, there was a time when the dad was responsible for finding a wife or finding a husband for his daughters. So when they would get to a particular age, 12, 13, 14 years old, depending on the tribe and the culture and the local community, he would then be on the hunt. He's looking for a groom. He's looking for a husband. He's looking for somebody to take care of his daughter. There's a couple key reasons for this. One was because most people were day laborers, which means you work, you earn what you get for that day, then you use that to pay for all the resources that you need to care for yourself and for your family. Then the next day you get up and do it again. It's kind of a rinse and repeat cycle that you really can't get out of. So if he's able to find someone to take care of one of his daughters when she is of age, that's one less person he has to worry about feeding, and maybe he can stretch his own resources just a little bit farther. There's also the whole cultural understanding in that time, and well, again, not that far back in our own American history, when women weren't supposed to really, manage money or have credit cards or checkbooks or things like that. So that was always the guy's job. So in Jesus' time, that's how it worked. So in one way, this was kind of a way to think about how to care for women and how to care for children and how to care for widows, because, oh, by the way, when dad dies, someone has to take care of mom. Some of us might know the story or remember the story of Peter. It's his mother-in-law who gets sick early on in the Gospels, and Jesus heals her because she's living in Peter's house. Peter has taken care and responsibility for his mother-in-law. This is how the culture in that time worked. This is why marriage becomes something of a necessity. It's a little less Nicholas Sparks, and it's a little bit more of cultural responsibility. And Jesus then begins to talk about that and talk about how resurrection doesn't require any of that. Because in the resurrection, in God's kingdom that's unfolding in this world, you and I, as post-resurrection Easter people, we believe that it's coming through the cross, it's coming through Christ at work in this world, moving through each one of us, breaking through so that we can envision God in this world. Resurrection means that no one needs to be cared for by others or needs to be beholden to others, that no one needs to be an object of anybody else, because we are all seen as equally, fully created and loved and blessed people of God. Now, you and I live in this world. this is all we get. So when we start talking about resurrection, we all do it, I do it, we may begin to think about resurrection, the afterlife, that last breath we take on earth, the first breath that we take in God's full presence. We may begin to think of resurrection or that place wherever we go as kind of a better version of what we already got. You know, one of those places where we don't have to water the grass or mow it quite as often as we do on this earth. Or maybe there'll be a couple of injustices that'll be kind of smoothed over so that we can all know that we are fully equal with God, but it won't be all that much different. That's how we see it. That's how the Sadducees see it. Which means that as we are thinking about our relationship with God, as we're thinking about the resurrection, even as we are thinking about the cross that Jesus will very soon be picking up. We're in chapter 20. The cross is truly right down the street at this point. That even in that, even in this good news that you and I give thanks for day after day, we sing about it, pray about it, give thanks for forgiveness every morning. This redemption and new life that makes us whole, that turns us upside down. Still, we are beholden to what we know and the way that we walk in the world. And so this is how we see God's kingdom unfolding. And in this world and in this time where we live and where we dwell, you and I are in competition with each other. We may not feel that, we may not say that out loud, but you and I are in competition. There are only so many resources to go around, and so we all have to work for them. And as we are working for them and striving for them, and we gain a little bit of power, we are going to want to hold on to it, whether it's wealth or authority or influence or whatever it may be. And as we are holding on to what we have gathered up, what little morsels or snacks we are able to have in our own hands, we certainly do not want to let that go, and we will apply that thinking to grace and forgiveness and God's love and resurrection. You know, if only we pray a little bit more, if only we work a little bit harder, if only we serve a few more people, if we speak a little bit more love and speak a little bit less of other words that are derogatory and damaging to the lives of others, if God could maybe notice us, if we could get a little bit more of that compassion that God keeps speaking about, then maybe we could know that after this life that we will be redeemed, that we will inherit this new life that the gospel and the text keep telling us about, and maybe we'll be a little closer to God. And as we are doing this work, and as we are dwelling on ourselves and wondering how close we are to God or how distant we are from God, every little bit that we can understand, we hold for ourselves. We hold in this space, we hold in our liturgy, we hold in our hearts, and in ways that we can't quite articulate, in ways that maybe we can't quite confess, we begin to see our neighbors as competition. Maybe we even begin to see our neighbors as objects who are in our way to gathering a few more morsels, or maybe gathering a little bit more grace, or being just a little bit more sure that God is with us. Jesus is trying to help us understand the resurrection. The Sadducees are confused by the idea of resurrection. You and I are confused by the ideas of the resurrection. And whenever we come across aspects of, especially the Gospel of Luke, where Jesus doesn't quite make sense, I mean, what does marriage have to do with resurrection? Whenever we get a little confused, we get a little stuck. In the Gospel of Luke, there's a key. There's a decoder ring, if you will, that whenever we are stuck, we can maybe unlock a little of what Jesus is trying to tell us about the resurrection. Here's where you find it. Go to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, verses 46 to 55. It's called Mary's Song. It's called the Magnificat. We'll be talking about it in just a few weeks in December as we are preparing for the birth of Christ in our next season of worship and time with God. Mary's song is what Mary, Jesus' mother, sings when she realizes that she's about to give birth to the Son of God, Jesus the Christ. And she sings this song about God's kingdom, about how those who have power will be toppled, and those who are kings and have great power over others, their thrones will be destroyed, and the hungry will be fed, and those who are homeless will have shelter, and those who are blind will then see. And those who are oppressed, those who are imprisoned, those who are being detained, they will be set free, because this is God's kingdom. God's kingdom is not an improvement over what we know. It is an absolute reversal of everything we know. Everything about this world is coming to an end. It is all being turned upside down, and it comes through Christ, who dies on the cross and gives us a new life, a new kingdom, a new vision, a new creation. as God intends for all of us to know that we are fully and equally created by God and loved by God at the same time. Yesterday I was flipping through Facebook, semi-conscious as I was. Maybe that's how you get through Facebook or Reddit as well. And I'm scrolling through mindlessly, and up comes a post from one of my classmates from Chicago, from seminary. She's serving a church, she's serving a church that's not that far from Broadview. For some of us who read the news, we know that Broadview in Chicagoland area is the ICE detention facility. So this is where she serves, this is where she lives, this is where she dwells, this is her backyard. And she began her post talking about how ICE was moving through literally her neighborhood. They went right down her street. And she talks about how she, along with some of her colleagues and her rabbi friends and her imam friends and her Buddhist monk friends, they will gather at the Broadview site, not necessarily to actively protest, though they are participating in that, but they're there to offer prayer to the protesters, and they will periodically go up to the door, as it is. It's probably more like a gate or a barricade, but they will go up to it and they will ask to go inside as people of God, representative of God's grace, to offer communion to those who are inside the facility, or to offer prayer, or to offer a word of grace, or simply to let those know who are inside that facility that they are seen, that they are known, and that they are loved by God. And every single time, they are turned away, as we might imagine. On Friday, the federal authorities declared that religious people, churchy types, will no longer be allowed outside of the Broadview facility. That if they are seen actively or quietly participating in prayer or any religious activity, they will be arrested on sight. Friends, if you're curious about the power of the resurrection, if you're curious about the power of the cross and the proclamation of God's grace breaking into this world, turning everything upside down, there's your sign. Those who hold power are terrified of God's power, terrified of God's grace breaking into this world, God's justice being known, not just by those who can hold on to their morsels and hold on to what they've been given, but to all of God's people, all of God's created, every person, man, woman, and child in this world, seen as God sees us. Beloved, worthy of grace, worthy of redemption. Christ's resurrection breaking into this world brings hope to the hopeless. It brings energy to the exhausted. It brings food to the hungry. It brings life to the lifeless. It brings power to those who are pushed aside, kept low, told to be silent, stay in the shadows, stay away, live in fear and dread for your life. The resurrection proclaims life. The resurrection proclaims a new creation, a new kingdom, a new vision, one that we can barely comprehend, but one that is transforming us every day through this water, through this meal, through the cross that gives us life. Jesus is helping us to envision what we cannot possibly comprehend, that God's kingdom is where no one is considered the object of another person's power. Amen.